Hi, everybody. This is Hustle Hub. I'm Giacomo. Today we are with a special guest. We have Eunice Lo. She has her own channel. She's been in consulting. So, Eunice, please tell us a bit about your background, who you are, and what we can find on your channel.
hmm I'm Eunice. I went to Deloitte in Canada for about 3 years, and then I just left in January of this year to pursue my own kind of dreams. So my channel is all about career-related things. Uh, you can find me on YouTube, but it's usually about like how to find like more meaning and enjoyment in your career. It was one of the big main problems that I had while working, that I just felt like I was kind of stuck in a box and I couldn't leave, and I felt a lot of burnout. So I just wanted to talk about these things, which I've explored myself, and just make it feel like people are heard and understood by my content.
Okay. So, can you tell us a bit about your background in university and what is your track record? What were your jobs and how you got where you are today?
So I went to Canada. There's a place called University of Waterloo. That one is a little bit special in terms of other universities because they actually have co-op terms implemented within their program. So uh, every year, instead of like taking a summer off, you would actually be part of the co-op program and do like a 4 month kind of like internship with all these companies that you want to. And so you basically have to go through the whole process of resume writing and submitting, and then doing interviews, uh, and like at a pretty early age. So I think my program was also 5 years. So uh, that one gave me about five different opportunities to go through the co-op programs, trying to figure out like what kind of industries or what kind of size of companies or types of companies that I want to work for in the future. And so I think that really helped make me want to work in more like a data science kind of field. So that's what I did after graduating, and worked in that field. And I worked for an advertising firm. And then afterwards, I went to work for Deloitte, which is great because I think it exposed me to different types of organizations from like in the co-op terms. Sometimes I worked for startups. So basically you would have to do everything and try to pick up everything yourself, all the way to a big company like banks or even Deloitte, where you have to kind of be in a political environment and also know how to navigate the politics, but also do your work well and be a specialist. So it's a good range to understand like what kind of things you like to do and what kind of management styles you like.
Okay. So you had a lot of internships even when you were at university, right?
Mhm.
Did that help when it came to finding new jobs, new full-time jobs? And if so, did you have an edge on everybody else that didn't come from the same background as you?
Um, I'd say 100%. Like, I think like the big purpose of this like school that I went to is the co-op programs. So compared to all other university students, it's much more helpful that you have some kind of background, because it's like if everybody just graduated with like a bachelor's of say business, like nobody really is any different except for the extracurriculars you do, maybe like the extra side hustles, or like maybe like YouTube channels or whatever that you do. So like if it's like if you have something a little different than everybody else on your resume, it looks better than anyone else who has like a 90, also a 90s, a GPA on their resume. So I think like what's best to get that first job is always about, it's not really about grades. Like grades is like kind of like a baseline, like you have to have good grades regardless, but it's just like what else can you put yourself to make yourself look different. So for me, actually, one of the things that they found interesting was the fact that I had a fashion blog. And so it showed that like I take initiative, I can run things by myself. And so that kind of transitions really well into a work environment. So just like yourself, where you're like having all these like extra projects and like doing this, like podcasts and YouTube that like it puts yourself a little bit more different than everybody else. And so you can also say like, I'm very hardworking, I have great work ethic. And that's something that like as an employer thinks is really great, because then it's like, oh, as an employer, I don't have to teach you all these things. You're going to go figure it out yourself.
Okay. Okay. So you talked about your experience at Deloitte. Can you tell us, why do you think so many graduates want to go in these big four firms, and what are the attractive things that most people don't find in other companies, like Fortune 500 companies, that they see in big four like Deloitte, EY, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and KPMG?
Mm. I think usually people want to work for the big four, even if they've heard like stories about like what it could look like. I think just having it on your resume seems like a really great asset to have, because it's almost like going through, say, like Stanford or Harvard. It's like that stamp of approval to say like this person is really great. They've gone through like the best quality. And so I think usually people like having it on their resume because it's a jumping platform to even better. So sometimes, like say if somebody is a senior analyst or senior consultant in the big four, when they go out to the workforce, like industry, usually they can get like manager or above. I've even seen people who like managers became like directors. There's senior managers who become VPs. So usually like it's a pretty big jumping platform, so that when you do go into say like industry, you have not only like the title, but like probably more responsibilities and uh, also more exposure to different industries and types of clients. So I think like the big advantage of say like big four is, and any consulting firm to be honest, is you get to be working with a lot of different types of clients. So you get to deal with a lot of different problems and figure out how to deal with all these problems and all the different types of clients that might have like, you might have really great clients, and then you have like really bad clients that are maybe like have tight deadlines or like have unrealistic expectations. And so you know in the future, like when you deal with these kind of situations, how to deal with it again. And then also gives you a lot of exposure to lots of different industries. So if you're like not sure like what you want to do, maybe in like if you graduated say like from business and then you're like, I still don't know what I want to do. Like I don't know if I want to focus on any particular industry. A lot of people use this as an example to figure out like which area they want to focus on and like what they want to specialize in. So I think that's the advantage as well. And then back in the day, like people liked consulting because they thought like, oh, you get to travel all the time. It's so cool to be able to walk in and go like, I'm a frequent flyer. Look at my hotel and my flights. So I think like that's part of the benefits as well. But right now, because of COVID, like that's not really a benefit anymore.
Okay. So can you tell us, you talked about some of the benefits. So can you tell us a bit more, what are the benefits of working for a company like Deloitte, aside from salary, of course? Is there insurance? Do you get discounts all over the place, or what are the main benefits of working for Deloitte?
Um, Salary wise, I'd be like, I don't know if it's really that much greater. I think
Okay.
it's actually sometimes even less, but because you put in way more hours than everyone else. So like if you go by like a dollar per hour thing, it might not really work out to be the best. But I think the other perks are like um because there's like all these travel perks, even if you don't travel for work, you actually can use those discount rates for say hotels or cars or flights. So sometimes like if you have personal trips that you want to take, you can like get discounts on those things. So I guess even more traveling if you really enjoy traveling. um, there's also this one thing that like they have access to the airport lounge. So if even if you're traveling for business or personal, you can like be bougie in the airport lounge and I don't know, sip on
Okay.
wine or something. um, I guess that, and plus the because everybody recognizes the whole brand as well. When you say that you work at a big four, everybody's like, "Oh, you work at a big four." But like, I guess it really depends on the person too. I think
Okay.
it's also like when you meet somebody new and like they've worked there, like you kind of have this like innate bond of like, oh, you worked there before. We know how it's like.
Okay, okay. You're just like alumni, but at Deloitte.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, okay. So it the traveling part and the benefit of traveling a lot is something that I hear a lot from people, and a lot of people wish they could travel more, thanks to their job. So, what are the positions inside the Big Four, and what are the kind of projects that require people to travel the most?
Mm. Um, I think it really depends on which team you're on, and what your functions are and where your clients are too. Because if your clients are all within like the city that you live in, then usually you probably don't travel that much except for like take an Uber to their office. Um, but if you do live in like it, like if say for example your clients are like farther away, probably you might like go to their office for big meetings, and then if you're say more in like a consulting role position, like because within say like the big four, there's different areas. There's like audit, financial advisory, risk advisory, and consulting. But if you're more like pure consulting, then there's a higher chance of you to travel as well. I think especially the higher you go up in the ranks, like there's more opportunities to travel because especially if you're like partner or director level, you're pitching and selling more. So you have to go to these clients to actually pitch and sell, except not in COVID. But I think like if you get to those levels, then you'll definitely be able to travel more. But at the same time, sometimes they might be like outside of like a typical 9 to 5 because you might have to like network a lot. And I think because of COVID, I'm not so sure if people will be willing to travel to the client site that often anymore. I think it really depends on the country. But I also heard like so like if you work in Canada, for example, like most of your clients will be in Canada, so you can't really travel internationally. US, it's also mostly within the US. But then I know like if you're a European country, you get to travel to all the different European countries. So that's pretty fun. Same with Asia. So I would say like pick Europe or Asia if you could. But I don't know if you can really pick the country that you want to work for. There might be like visa issues too.
Okay, okay. So, um, do these kind of companies invest a lot in training employees, and what are the benefits that you you got by being trained at Deloitte that are still relevant today after you left?
Good question. So they have a formal training um like place actually. They have a whole well, at least in our building, they had a whole floor dedicated to something called Deloitte University. So within Deloitte, they actually have their own like training programs that they run. And then within Deloitte University, it's not just like for employees, but they also have training stuff for clients. But to be honest, these training things aren't really that helpful. They never really helped in my day to day. It was more just like if you are a senior level and you just became a senior or a manager, like how do you do your function? And it was very general because honestly, it really like your job really depends on your team and like what your clients have. So it's not that helpful, but it's fun because you get to have like a day off and kind of feel like you're at like a summer camp type of thing. And then other training, I think per team and per person, there is some kind of like learning budget, but it's not a lot to be honest. Like, if anything, it's probably like one big conference only. It's not like we usually spend a lot on training because there's also not that much time to be able to go train. Like, your whole day is already filled up with work or meetings. So it's very rare to actually be able to have the time to go train. Um, and if they do have other like so then within um like their online platforms, there's actually some kind of like courses as well that you could also take. So I think we have free passes to like LinkedIn Learning, but then also there's like some other kind of courses that they bought, which you can kind of take too. But I guess it depends on like your function and your clients and your industry, whether it's relevant or not. Sometimes it's not. So there's that. I think I answered your question.
Okay. But are there any certifications that are still relevant even after you leave, or not?
Mm. Um, Let me think about this. To be honest, I think I didn't really learn too much while I was there. Uh, it was the things I learned were more soft skills about, like, say, how to deal with people, how to like manage up, manage down,
Okay.
and kind of like things that you would learn in any kind of job with these kind of soft skills. Especially if you work at a big corporation, like you have to learn how to manage and negotiate and set boundaries. So I think like that was the main learnings. It wasn't really anything about technical expertise or anything like that, because for me at least, it was like I was already a specialist going into Deloitte. So like there's not really too much that could have been taught, and you usually learn on the job too. So yeah, I think it was mostly soft skills.
Okay, so you talked about soft skills. What are the best soft skills that you think are necessary to thrive in a firm like the Big Four?
Mm. Um, Number one would be how to kind of like manage up and also deal with like the above so that you can easily get promoted or get salary raises. So I think one of the really important things if you want to thrive is to find a really good partner to back you up, or even like other senior managers and directors who will go like, this is a great person to work with, let's give them projects, let's get them on these like projects that they want to be on. So if you really want to be on projects or work that you want to do, you have to really be great at managing those kind of expectations with people, whether it's having one-on-ones, doing regular check-ins with them, going above and beyond to go like, okay, what does that partner or senior manager need? Maybe I can help them with it. And just being like there all the time so that they know that you're available. And also with your partners to always go like, even if they don't work with you directly, make sure that they know like, here are all the different projects or extracurriculars or extra things that you've done to make the team and the client satisfied. So that way, when they do go into those like promotion meetings, they can like the partner can go like, this they're great because of like this whole list of stuff, and they should definitely get promoted because they've gone above and beyond. So like I think that's like one really key skill to have is like how to manage those expectations and like keep those relationships going. Not to say that you have to be best friends with them, just like, make sure that you have your tabs and your pigeons everywhere.
Okay.
So that's one key thing. The second key thing is as you go up the ranks, you become more of a salesperson. So you have to learn how to like sell. And that's not to say like you have to be a snake oil salesman and go like, you need this, let's pitch you this, and like randomly cold pitching to everyone. It's just like how do you like you have to learn how to really build a network, because your network is like honestly your net worth. And so um, you have to learn how to like build that kind of mutual bond with people so that you can easily go like, oh, are you struggling with this problem in your company? Like, are we have these services that can help you, and kind of like build that rapport with them. So like as you go up the ranks, you have to like learn how to sell. There's tons of books and courses that you can do learn from that about that. And then I think the third one that would be really important for anyone is learning how to like set boundaries. So a lot of times, everybody expects you to be available 24/7. It's like, oh, we have like this like projects that's being rushed, so you have to work all your nights and weekends. And so, I mean, having that a couple times is okay, I guess, especially if you're trying to build your career and your rapport with other people. But if you do that a lot of weeks in a row, you'll eventually get burnt out. So like I think it's key to understand like what your boundaries are, what you can deal with, and how to deliver those boundaries to people, because you can't just go like you can't go like F this, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I have my own life. Like you can't like that's too much, but like you have to be able to say like, I'm sorry, I have all these like preset say like family duties that I have to do. Sorry, like I can sign on maybe later, but like 5 to 7 is family time or me time or something like that. Like you just have to be able to set expectations with people and go like, I can only work this much to be productive. If you really want the best out of me, like this is like the boundaries that I set.
Okay, okay. So you talked about the difficulties of working many hours and so on. So is work-life balance something that depends more on the role you have inside the firm, or is it something that depends more on the type of manager that you have?
Um, I would say it's a mix of both. Because even if you have really great managers, you usually still have some kind of projects where it maybe wasn't scoped properly, or when it was scoped, it was very vague. So, like, you have to figure it out, and then maybe it becomes a bigger problem than it was. So, usually, those kind of projects will have overtime. And, but some managers are nicer where it's like, oh, you worked like 10 weeks of overtime, you're probably going to burn out soon. Let's give you some time off. So, like, they're nice in that sense. But sometimes, like, managers don't recognize that. So you may not have that privilege. And so you will probably have to step up and say, like, I need a break. um, but I think, yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I think it depends on your function and also depending on your managers. Usually, if you're at the bottom of the totem pole and you're an analyst or a consultant, you'll usually probably have more hours than other people just because you're at the bottom and there's nobody else to shift the work to. I think it does get better once you get to like a manager level because then usually you have a lot of other like people that you can shift the work to. But at the same time, you probably have to be with the younger folks to kind of guide them. So you may still have to do a lot of overtime too. So it really depends, I guess, on your team, how well the projects are scoped, your managers, and also your job function as well.
Okay, okay. But are there roles that are usually more demanding than others? And if so, what are they?
Um, I don't know. I feel like it could be a lot of so for sure, like in audit, you when you have your tax season, your audit season, then that's like crazy hours all the time. That's expected. Um, Consulting, if you usually like say fly out to your clients 4 days a week type of thing, it's actually not too bad. Like the only bad part is because of like you're traveling so much that you usually don't aren't at home. So the hours aren't too bad all the time. It really depends on I guess your clients. Usual and then other types of consulting where you're not like flying out. It really depends on your project too. Um, if you're, I think it actually usually boils down to which team you're at. If your team is like short staffed and like there's not enough people who have like the same skill sets as you, then usually you get end up getting all the projects and you have to do it yourself. So I think it really depends on the team usually.
Okay, okay, okay. And you talked about, and many people talk about the politics inside firms like Deloitte. Can you tell us a bit more what people mean by that, and what are the circumstances where you found yourself to have to deal with this issue?
Um, I think one of the main parts of politics is like to get promoted and to get like the raises or the projects that you want, you definitely have to, like I said, like make sure your partner knows what you're doing. So sometimes, like if you're not comfortable with it, you might feel like it's a little slimy or confrontational or outside of your comfort zone, but it's kind of necessary to do to like shimmy up to people and be close to people and go like, hey, would you do you need any help? I know we're not friends, but like, and I know we have nothing in common, but like, let's work together. So sometimes like you feel like you have to like put a face on.
Yeah.
And sometimes like you may have like a manager who's like a micromanager and maybe you don't like micromanagers. So like I think like that's something that's hard to deal with and like you sometimes have to deal with it or like maybe there's people you don't like working with like like they're they're horrible, and like you just like, I don't want to work with them, but you have to, which usually is the case for a lot of like big companies anyways. But I think what people are alluding to in terms of politics is actually like the workplace culture is usually kind of toxic sometimes, where like I said, like they'll be like, it's Friday, they'll call you at 4 p.m. and you have something to deliver by Monday, or like they'll be like, oh, we're super tight on this project. You have to work all your weekends and weeknights. And they kind of just like voluntold you all your personal time. So it's very hard sometimes to keep that balance. Um, and and I think it really depends on the place too, but sometimes there's quite a lot of competition. So if you're all trying to compete for like that same manager promotion, like sometimes people will kind of do things behind your back to make sure that you don't get it and they get it type of thing. So there's that, which is really not nice, but it happens.
Okay. So a lot of people talk about the exit opportunities after going through the Big Four. What are the go-to places for most people after an experience at the Big Four?
One is usually people jump around all the different consulting firms because then they do that to get like an increase in pay or increase in title. So that's like one of the main routes. The other main route is usually they go to industry because they're fed up with being on the client side, client servicing side. So usually they go to the clients, especially if they've like made a good rapport with one of their previous clients, or maybe one of their friends has worked with that client before. That's a usual natural progression too. They go to the client side. Sometimes like say like if like I have an acquaintance that was in the M&A field and they worked on a deal, usually they'll like go and work on that like resulting client deal after, um, because they've already been working on that project already. So they feel like they already know some of the information. They've worked well with those people on the client. So then they usually just jump over to that. And then the third option, I guess, is usually just any general like client side. Because again, like if you've been in consulting, you're probably like really burnt out and tired of being on the servicing side. So that usually if you do jump to client side, you get a title upgrade and also a pay upgrade as well. So that's the usual three options.
Okay. Another thing that I'd like to clarify for my audience, does Deloitte and more in general Big Four companies organize a lot of events for employees to build their networks and so on? Is that something they value or not?
Actually, don't think I've ever been to a networking event by Deloitte. If
Okay.
anything, it's like more like I have to go to like campus recruiting things to recruit university students.
Okay.
Yeah, like usually if I go to like networking events, it's because I chose to for myself.
Okay. But from people maybe that you know or something like that, did you is it the same in other companies like EY, PwC, KPMG, and so on, or is it just Deloitte?
Yeah, I think it's actually all of them. Like I don't
Okay.
remember them ever going to networking things. Um, if like the only networking, I guess, ish type of things would be if they went to conferences and then they would have to go network there. But usually everybody I know goes and does their own like networking. Like I remember I was in a meetup somewhere, and there's one girl, like I guess like in the meetup they ask the audience to like introduce themselves, like pitch themselves type of thing. And like I remember one girl was from Deloitte too, and I was like, wait, why are you here? I thought it was just me.
Okay. So, um, so one other thing is we talked about how travel changed in the last 2 years. And on the other side, will Big Four push? Do you think Big Four will push for people to come back in the office, or is it something different? Because, for example, investment banks like Morgan Stanley are really pushing for people to come back to the office. Is that something that do you think Big Four will do?
I think it really depends on your country for one, because each country has their own different policies and how comfortable they are with like going back to the workplace. I think like Australia and New Zealand said that they're already going to be like forever working from home. So it's up to you to decide if you want to actually work in the office or not. Right now, even like in Canada, like you have the opportunity to go to the office if you want. So if you feel like you're stuffy working from home and you need a new like balance, you can easily like book a desk and like go in and work. Um, so I think it really depends. I think they're still like not sure about like full time going back because of the whole like COVID keeps changing type of situation. Um, and even like visiting clients, it's also not a mandatory thing. So I think the traveling is going to be less, to be honest, because nobody's really sure about like the ability to travel. Um, so yeah.
Okay, okay. And another thing that I'd like to clear for people that wish to get in this world, how does the recruitment process works? And can you tell us a bit more how that is structured? How many rounds of interviews did you need to do, and so on?
So if you're a fresh grad, I would say even just to get your resume reviewed and probably picked is you have to kind of have an 80 plus average. So if you don't have an 80 plus average, it's very hard for you to actually get reviewed because actually how HR does it is on an Excel sheet, they'll have a whole list of people who are 80 plus and then 70 to 80 and then 60 to 70. So as a recruiter, since you already have like hundreds and hundreds of resumes within the 80 plus range, usually you only look at that tab of the Excel sheet and not even go to the other tabs. So if you're like way less in the like if you're like 70, you'll most likely not even get looked at. So there's, as I said, there's so many resumes to look at. Usually what pops out is, do they have the technical skills that team might need? Do they have the relevant experience that team might need? And also, is there something that stands out about that person to make them look like a star employee? So, like I said, like if you don't do all these extracurriculars to make yourself stand out, that's great. Um, and then as a full-time staff, like if you're not like coming from school, if you're like say already have some work experience, it's usually about like um, what relevant experience you have. And also, if you have like somebody who can refer you in, that's even better because they prize referrals. So if you get a referral, you'll most likely get at least an interview. And then how the interview rounds work is after the HR call that usually everybody has. The first round is like usually a technical kind of round where if you're say like a coder or anything like that, you'll probably get a technical test. But if you're more like a business or consulting, you'll probably get something that is like a business case to see how you would deal with like certain situations and how you think. So that first round is usually a technical or a business case, and it's usually with somebody who's like the same level as you know, like what role you would go into or hire. So anything from manager, senior consultants, or consultants. And then the second round is usually more of like a behavioral round. So they want to see like how you think, how you deal with like teams, structures, like your strengths and weaknesses, usually those types of questions. And that's usually with like a manager, senior manager type of level. And then the third round is more like with a partner level, just to see like if you would fit well with the team or not, if they like you, if they really want to work with you and bring you into the team or not. Um, and then if you come into the firm at like maybe like a senior manager or above level, they will have extra requirements to see like, oh, how's your sales skills like? What kind of network do you have? And then if you're a partner, they'll probably want you to interview with all the partners too, to make sure that you can deal well with the partners and see if you have any kind of like relevant experience that you can kind of serve as an offering. Um, so that's usually how recruitment is like.
Okay, okay. So you talked about technical skills. What do you think are the best technical skills that you should have before applying to the job?
Depends by function again. If I were to say specifically for data science, it would be any kind of data visualization skills. So Tableau or Power BI, SQL is like a mandatory, and then also any kind of like open source modeling, statistical modeling, or coding kind of languages. So Python, R, and if you have anything above that, that's even better. So, but it really depends on your function again. Like not everybody's going to be a data scientist, so not everybody's going to need those skills. If you're usually just like consulting side, you have to just know PowerPoint. There's nothing
Yeah.
like really that hard. But if you're like more specialized in like certain type of team, like if you're in like mergers and acquisitions, you need to know like how that world works. If you're an audit, you also have to like have your accounting skill sets and maybe like a CPA or a CPA. If you're more in the finance field, you probably need a CFA. Actually, I'm trying to think what the international versions of CPA and CFA are. So I don't really
Yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
you can look up the relevant
CFA
ones.
is recognized more or less all around the world, I think.
Okay,
So,
cool.
so since you left, what are the pros and cons of being on your own and managing projects on your own?
The pros are if I feel like working today, I don't have to, like if I don't feel like working, I don't have to. If I want to work, then I do. Though at the same time, because I'm still client based right now, it really depends on how my clients are. If I have like too many clients demanding things right now, like it's gonna be like the same as Deloitte, where it's just like all hands on deck, the fire's burning, I have to like flame out the fires, like so in that sense, sometimes it's the same because I'm also clients like servicing right now. So I still have to deal with clients. But there's that whole freedom of I can be location dependent, independent. I can be like time independent. Like if I don't feel like working, I don't have to, but sometimes I still have to work late into the night or on weekends. And then also, I think the pro as well is because I get to choose my clients. I get to choose if I really want to work with these people, if I really want to take on this project or not. If I was back at Deloitte, I don't usually get to choose that. Like usually I get put on a project. So like if I don't like working with that kind of client, I have to suck it up. And I think the other pro is because I'm running the show now, I get like the clients have the rapport with me, so then they trust me a lot. So if they rely on my expertise and like my opinions more, versus like on the client side, on at Deloitte, like usually there's also senior managers or like partners who will have an opinion as well. So you have to like put in their opinion, and usually you probably have like 50 versions of the same deck because everybody had an opinion. Um, but for me now, I'm just like, okay, the clients are okay with this, so let's do it. It's very like, even if you don't have a shiny PowerPoint deck with everything aligned and everything perfect, your clients will still be happy because they don't really care for the deck. They just want the work at the end of the day. So you do see your what you recommended being implemented much faster, and you get to have that kind of say with your clients way more. Though it is much harder, I would say, to get your own clients versus at Deloitte. It's like you know when you're going to get paid, you know when you're going to get a project. Even if you don't get a project and you're sitting on the bench, you still get paid. So that's great. But right now, it's like it ranges all the time.
Okay. So for those who think about leaving big firms and so on, what are the best tips that you have to get clients? What worked best for you, for example?
Yeah, I think the end of the like I said earlier, like it's all about your network. Even if you're within like you're doing your own thing, or even if you're working in a big four, it's all about like what your network is like. So you have to keep building that rapport with your people to say like this is what I can do. I'm a great person to work with. I know what I'm doing. And if people know that over time, they'll like be interested in you, and they might even refer other people that they know that might need your expertise. So I think that's one of the easiest ways to get clients because first of all, you already have that warm connection. They know what your work style is like, and they trust you a lot. I think with anything in client servicing, it's all about trust. And if they trust you as a person to be able to deliver the work. So if you have that kind of rapport and trust built, that's even better. It's really honestly really hard to convert cold leads. I've tried that. It's really it's really hard. You have to keep like making them warm and really have to like show them why they should trust you. And it's like it feels like you're trying to get a girl's number who like that girl is probably like A-list celebrity and that girl will never pick you, like choose you type of thing. You want to try to get like a warm pick up a warm girl that is probably like your friend's friend. That's much easier.
Okay, okay. So another thing that I forgot to ask you before is how the salary structure works in Big Four. How is Deloitte doing, and how does that change going up the ladder?
So salary usually how it works is everybody is probably like salary plus bonus. There are a few special cases where it's like no bonus, but you get overtime hours. So it depends on like how many overtime hours you work and get approved for. But salary ranges also really depend on which vertical you're in. So if you're in audit versus consulting versus financial advisory, risk advisory, they have their own bands of what each level should be. And it also depends on each country, like what the usual ranges are. But I would say like knowing Canada, the entry level range is probably like 60K, 50, 60K if you're an undergrad in Canada, at least. You can convert to your country's currency. And then as you go up, maybe like it's actually easier to get a salary bump if you come from outside. If you come from inside, the most you get is a 10% increase, to be honest. It's not a lot. So like if you started off sadly with like 50K, the next year you're not going to get too much more.
Okay.
um, even if you get promoted. So I think like the highest as a senior consultant you can get is less than six figures. I think it's about like a little bit less than six figures. The manager range goes to probably about like 130K. And then the senior manager maxes out at probably like 200, 150, like 175 to 200K. But it really depends, I guess, again, on your team, what level you're in, what vertical you're in, what country you're in.
Okay. So, are the bonuses in sort of stock options and so on, or is it something different? How does that work in these Big Four that are not public companies?
Yeah, unless you're a partner, you won't be able to get anything like stock options. And even as a partner, there's like two types of partners. So there's income partner and equity partner. So income partners are the same. They also don't get stock options. They're the same as everyone else. They get salary plus bonus. Um, but then equity partners are the only ones who get stock options. So, but to get into that, you have to have like a pay to get into the to that. So you have to pay an upfront fee to be able to become an equity partner. And also you probably have to go lots of rounds of interviews to be able to go like, yes, we should have them as our equity partner because that's so much more responsibility than everybody else. So that's how you would be able to get any stock options.
Okay. So one last thing that I'd like to ask you is you have a podcast, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit more how is that as a creator? And is it how does Spotify, for example, differs from YouTube as a platform? And is it easier to stand out on YouTube or Spotify? How do they differ?
Um, I think it's actually easier to get more organic traffic from YouTube because of whole YouTube recommendation engine, it's so much easier for them to like when you watch a YouTube video on the side, they say like
Yeah,
we recommend all these other videos that are similar to this. And then
yeah.
so that whole recommendation engine is actually really great for you as a creator to get organic traffic. I think if you look at your analytics and my analytics, I would say like more than like maybe like definitely more than half of the traffic comes from that. And also like on your homepage, when you first log into YouTube, they'll be like, we recommend all this stuff based off of what you recently watched. So I think like that part is actually really great for getting organic traffic. Spotify and like any podcasting platform, they don't have some kind of recommendation engine like that. That's really like easy to serve up organic traffic. Spotify sometimes does based off of like what you recently listened to, but that's usually based off of like If they even like listen to one of your podcasts, you'll probably get onto that recommendation banner. So, and also a lot of people aren't really checking out that recommendation banner either. It's not as prevalent on YouTube. So I think it's a lot easier to get organic traffic straight from YouTube. But the thing with Spotify and podcasts in general is it usually is for like a more affluent market. And if they do listen to your podcasts, they usually listen for a lot longer. So if you have more long form content like this, it's a lot easier for Spotify. If you have more shorter form content, like maybe like 10 minutes or less, or 10 to 20 minutes, it's probably better for YouTube. And yeah, like I think it's easier to do audio content, to be honest, because then to keep somebody engaged for 10 to 20 minutes on a YouTube video is quite difficult, because everybody has such a short attention span. Usually, if they're already listening to podcasts, they'll be like, okay, I'm for sure going to listen to at least 5 minutes of this, and I will have that bandwidth. So you get way more engaging audiences from podcasts and Spotify.
Okay, thank you. So I'm done with the questions. So Eunice, thank you a lot for your time. And if you want to say something else, I'm here for it. If not, really thank you for your time.
Thanks. And don't forget to check out my channels too, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll link somewhere.
The link will be in the description, of course. Okay. Thank you a lot. Thank you for being with us. This is it for today. I'm Giacomo. See you the next time. This is Hustle Hub.